So safety wise, we will need a bucket of water, first aid kit, fire blanket, so in an emergency you may need to just smother the fire and evacuate the area, so you can use a fire blanket quickly, and the gauntlets. We also have all of our material prepared in the background, so we have our tinder, we have our smaller bits of kindling. It's a really key part to have all of that prepared in beforehand. The Kelly Kettle comes in two parts. We have the base where the fire goes, and we have the body of the Kelly Kettle. So inside the stopper there, you can see this is full of water. Always check that it is full of water. The Kelly Kettle itself is effectively a double skin in there that holds the water, and this will go on top of the fire, and then you'll see it's hollow inside. And when we place the body of the Kelly Kettle on there, always have the spout facing away from you. The stoppers vary on Kelly Kettles. Some of the newer ones, they're made into whistles, but I always err on the side of caution, always take them out. The reason why is because the older stoppers are not whistles, and what they'll do, they'll just keep the pressure building up in there because they'll seal that, and eventually the sides will pop. So the fire lay that we're going to use inside the Kelly Kettle is a pyramid style. So it's a sort of waffle effect. So it's used in pieces to cross each other to create those little gaps inside for that oxygen to flow. Now, the most effective way to build this is to have a solid base on the bottom. If we leave gaps in that bottom layer, those hot embers might fall through, hit a wet base and go out. So this is what it's going to look like. So we'll build up about 3 to 4 layers, starting with slightly larger pieces of kindling and gradually reducing them to smaller ones. On the top then, we will load that up with some wood shavings. Don't pack too much in there because they'll fall through those little gaps and they'll plug them, and we won't get that nice flow of oxygen. And then finally, on top of those wood shavings, we're just going to fluff up a bit of cotton wool. We will lie that in the middle, and that's what we'll use to ignite the fire. We have these fire strikers that we use. So there's a striker here which is a piece of steel, and then this flint, it's a friction. There are 2 parts to it which have these little indents where you put your thumbs. Often the pressure is put on the steel there, and then it's slowly released as they get to the end. But really what you're wanting is the pressure at the end, because it's going to flick off this really hot spark. So if we're facilitating this with children, you can invite them into your area. You can get them to kneel in that respect position. What they can do is they can practice lighting it in one of these shells. So you can rest that on top of a tree stump. They can be in that position and they can safely practice. So make sure they're not flicking it over themselves or up in the air, only onto that space. So the technique is just for them to practice, so they can just practice and practice and practice, and then eventually they'll get that spark which will light it. But always do that practicing of the fire lighting within your fire area. Don't set tree stumps up randomly, around the woodland and the space where they're practicing the fire lighting, because you don't have all of these control measures in place. So it's just that nice long strike. That first layer, second layer of kindling start to catch. Then there's enough heat and energy in there to put the Kelly Kettle on top. Now, if you do that too quickly, sometimes it can create this sudden vacuum and it might just go out. So just be patient with it. Just allow that to burn down enough. Holding it sideways, lifting it and carrying it across. And then we drop it onto there. What we need to wait for is for those flames to start licking the top. We can then load it up with a bit more fuel. So put slightly larger ones in, not really big chunky ones at the moment, because this will disturb the fire lay too much. So just load it up. You can invite a child in, they can take the respect position, they can take a small piece of kindling, rest it on the side, just balance it on the side and tip it up. Also, once we've got in this position, make sure everything's tucked in, so we don't have anything, anything dangling from a hat, anything around your neck, anything hanging down. Once that fire's really embedded in there and those flames are licking the top, and you've got a really good fire going, you can load it up with some slightly larger pieces. The aim is to keep those flames licking the top. So once it's at this stage, it only takes a few minutes to boil that quantity of water up. If you take your eye off this for 30 seconds, that fire can drop down quite quickly and almost go out. So once you're in this role, you remain in that role. So if something happens and somebody needs to deal with the children or the young people, then that's up to the people supporting you. The handle on the Kelly Kettle, this doesn't get hot, so you don't need the gauntlets on to lift this. But the same, lift the handle horizontally. Don't lift it like this because there's a lot of heat coming out of the top now. So lifting that carefully to the side, like this. And then you can put the stopper in if you just need to keep that warm. You can keep the stopper in there. Once we have our Kelly Kettle ready and we want to start distributing it between the cups, obviously take the stopper out. And what we do is use a combination of the handle and the chain to tilt the Kelly Kettle. So make sure nobody's holding the cup because this will come out boiling hot. And you gently just pull the chain and pour the water into the cup, like so. And if you want to save some of that hot water for later, you can just put the stopper back in.